on the last episode of Aperture.
The Quran, interestingly, when it talks about marriage and when it refers to those people who are married, it uses the word mosinina ghaira mushafihin. Mosineen is plural of mosin. Mosin is a person who is inside a fort, right? So a married person is a mosin, as in he is inside a fort that protects that person from the dangers of being a bachelor, of living alone.
Are they going to get married with me? Are they going to look at me, or are they going to look at my house or car or something like that?
We've heard the term biological clock. I'm sure all of you might have heard that. It's a commonly used term, and it's meant to make us aware that there is a right time for everything.
I'm almost 40. I've got a
40.
Yes, almost.
So you're shy of saying that you're in Ansarullah?
Still one more year.
He's in denial.
Yes.
It is important that you first reform yourselves. If you become righteous and virtuous, then have faith that Allah will treat your progeny in good manner.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening and welcome to the show tonight. On behalf of the entire Aperture team, I want to thank you for joining us and tuning us in on this live episode of the Aperture show. On the last episode, we discussed timely marriages and the benefits of timely marriages, including some of the biological, social, psychological, and even spiritual benefits of timely marriages. Tonight's episode is the third part of an ongoing series, a very special ongoing series on relationships, marriage, and I'm sure your favorite and everyone's favorite, finding your love. Now, is it that difficult to find love? Or perhaps we're looking in the wrong places. How do I choose the right partner for myself? Is there a right time to marry? And how do I know if she is the one or he is the one? And how can I satisfy my marriage obligations with my educational requirements and my professional ambitions, especially with our young ladies at home? And tonight we also discuss a very taboo topic, and that, at least in the Western society, and that's cousin marriages. And I suspect and expect that this topic will generate a lot of discussion in studio, at home, and on social media. So this and much more in the next hour on tonight's show. We welcome you to tweet in or email your questions throughout the program, and in the latter part of the episode, we will address those questions. We'll pose those questions to our expert panel in studio. To ask your questions or share your thoughts, tweet us at aperture_show or email us at apertureshow@gmail.com. Now, tonight we are joined by some old faces and some new faces. On my left is National Secretary Tarbiyat, Shahid Mansoor Saab. Assalamu alaikum. No doubt he is the heart and the humor of the show. We'll see that very soon. On my left is Murabbi Saab Silsila, York region.
Yes.
Farhan Iqbal Saib. And also with us is National General Secretary, the respected Nasir Saab. Sabi Nasir Saab, who is married and I believe father of 3. Assalamu alaikum.
So, do you consider me in the old faces or new face?
Young face with an old...
Old, hard, young face.
In addition to this, we have also Dr. Maniza Khan joining us. That's the National Secretary Tarbiyat Lajna, and she will be offering a very unique perspective, a Lajna viewpoint, and also a medical explanation of the various issues that we will deal with tonight. Also, I've just been noted that we have a lot of followers around the world. Of course, Canada, US, we have Germany, Pakistan, UK, and Tunisia, Switzerland, and so on and so forth. So, mashallah, together, we are joined all together today, and I look forward to this discussion. Now, at this time, I request Shahid Mansoor Saab to take over the ship and navigate the show from here on.
So, during the introduction, you have mentioned about the new and the old faces. I'll start with the new face, Sabi Nasir Sahib. I just wanted to ask, you are married, mashallah, you have 3 children, and for how long you are married for?
I got married in 2000, but I got engaged 2 years prior to that. So my wife is actually from Germany, so with the whole legal process, we had to sort of delay the wedding because of the sponsorship and all that stuff. However, I got married at 24 years.
24 years. You got engaged at 22 years.
22 years.
And you married within the family? Or
Yes, my wife is my first cousin.
your first cousin.
Yes.
Who brought up in Europe?
Brought up in Germany.
And Germany, right? And you brought up almost here.
Almost
to some
here.
extent.
Most,
Yes.
yeah. So I was 14 years old when I came to Canada. So don't ask me how old I am now. But so I've done my high school education here. I've done my university education here. So I would say I've seen both sides, right? I wasn't that young when I came here, so I do remember Pakistan. I do remember, because I spent a lot of time in Middle East, so I do remember Middle East and that culture and stuff. So I can sort of do a reasonable comparison, but my wife, she was very young when she went to Germany. She was 2 years old when she went. So
very interesting combination.
She's pretty much grown up in
Germany. Right. And Sufyan Sahib, what about your marriage?
Did I say enough last
you
episode?
married within the family or outside of the family?
No, it was in the family. She's also my first cousin.
And from Pakistan?
She's from Pakistan.
Worst case scenario here. So
I was,
according to our youngsters, because they feel shy of getting married with a cousin, and on the top of that in Pakistan.
So I got the best of it, right?
So interesting. We'll see. You have to say this because you have to go back home, right?
Absolutely.
So that's
and
why,
she's watching today, actually.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. See, I neglected to send the link. So.
Okay. So, bringing up in the society, and there are certain things which has been talked about, the cousin marriages, and because why I'm asking this, why I'm putting this question in front of us, one of the taboo, and especially the youngsters, when we had the discussions with them, the boys and the girls side, Lajna Malla, Munaza Khan Saba, who's on the phone, she had the discussions with the girls side also in the different sessions, and what we came up with, that boys and the girls, they say that we want to know the person with whom we are getting married.
Sure.
The perfect scenario is the cousin marriage. But we have a huge question mark and the dilemma revolving around this cousin marriage topic. So what do you think? What happens in the society, and how you coped with this? Did your friends knew about it when you were getting married with your cousin?
See, I think first of all, there isn't a single answer that you can give to a person that would satisfy. I mean, if the person is a Muslim, the answer is completely different, right? You would say, look, I mean, on the one hand, you proclaim and you believe in that Azza is a perfect man. Yet in his uswa, you see these examples. Now, 1,500 years later, somehow you tend to think that what he did was wrong, because you're now questioning cousin marriages, right? So on the other hand, you take great pride in the fact that in the Holy Quran there are so many prophecies that are fulfilled in the latter days. Yet when it comes to marriage issue, you somehow have this feeling that the Quran, na'uzubillah, is wrong, and cousin marriage is absolutely taboo and you can't do it. So it depends.
What is the taboo around it? What is the taboo?
The taboo is North America. The taboo is Europe. The taboo is Western society.
What is the taboo in itself?
So, I mean, if you trace it back, possibly, I mean, I don't know the exact reason from where this would have started. I think I was reading an article that, and they sort of alluded to the fact that perhaps in the early days, when in the European society, because of the promiscuity in the society, they started to create this environment around the family, because the family was together, that look, your cousins and your close relatives, because you're all living together, they're off limits, right? So it starts from there, evolves, mm-hmm. right? But in Islam, it's the other way around.
Yes, but what is especially you brought up also here in the schools and colleges, what do they say about the cousin marriages?
Well, it's a cultural thing.
I think what they say is, I mean, they paraphrase by saying EU.
Okay.
Right?
It's a gross factor. It's a gross thing, right? And it's with a cousin brother or cousin sister. That's the first pushback which comes from them. But there's another issue, and Mirza Khan Sahib, what is the other issue which especially in the society, they had the taboo around the cousin marriages?
I think one of the biggest concerns really is just from a science perspective, the genetic consequences or ramifications. of cousins marrying one another. And I think that the most important thing to point out is the numbers. And if you look at the risk of birth defects, which is what most people are concerned about, right? So the risk of birth defects in children who are born to parents who are first cousins is increased only 1 to 3%. And this is according to the National Society of Genetics in the U.S. So really, it is so insignificant, the risk that is increased, that the National Society doesn't even recommend, premarital genetic testing or screening of any kind. And this type of risk that I've stated, like 1 to 3%, that type of risk also exists with other things, advanced maternal age. If the woman is over 35, it's the same exact risk percentage that she runs of her children having problems. So we have to kind of look at it in the bigger picture and not, just focus on cousins marrying one another being the cause of birth defects in children.
So there are other reasons also, and then one of the very interesting article by Dr. Fahim Yunus Qureshi Sahib, who is National Secretary Tarbiyat of USA. He's a doctor by profession, and he wrote an article in Huffington Post, which we published in the Ahmadiyya Gazette. He mentioned that there is always a chance of transferring the diseases, especially when a brown person marries to a brown person, when a white person marries to a white person, when an Italian marries to an Italian, or a Jew married to a Jew. There is always a tendency of transferring the diseases because of a certain lifestyle.
Right.
So does it mean that we stop marrying between those interracial or within the same race or within the same religion? No.
And I think the other thing that you have to keep in mind is that if marrying within your family was such a cause of genetic deformities, then a vast majority of the Muslim world would be deformed.
Right.
Because they all do that. Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, we should have, off the 1 billion Muslim population, 600 million should be completely deformed.
So
right? Because they're all marrying within.
Your two examples are sitting over here. You have the children,
right.
mashallah.
I think the concern, and Munazza Sahiba has rightly said so, that there is a much higher risk of deformities as you progress in age.
Absolutely.
Rather than looking at the cousin marriages, right? The science is all. I mean, this is why I said when you asked the initial question, right? That depending on who's asking the question, on the one hand, we are looking at the Holy Quran, and the Holy Quran tells us about the whole, 1500 years ago is talking about embryology and the whole concept. Nobody in the world had any idea, right? And on the one hand, we say, wow, and when it comes to this, and it clearly instructs in the Holy Quran that who you're allowed to marry, but that's an absolute taboo, right? So I mean, I'm sure Rabbi Sahib is going to...
Which verse and how it explains in the Holy Quran?
Yeah, in the Holy Quran, it's chapter 4, verse 24, where Allah Ta'ala lists all those relations which you are not allowed to get married to or to have any relationship with. And cousins are not among them. I mean, Allah says, forbidden to you are your mothers and your daughters and your sisters and your father's sisters and your mother's sisters and brothers' sisters and sisters' daughters and so on and so forth, right? And those brothers and sisters you have from the same foster mother, right? Those are forbidden to you, but cousins is not mentioned anywhere in the Holy Quran, so it's allowed according to the Holy Quran.
So, and one more thing, which I use this analogy in the different programs which I had with the Jamaats, that we believe that an engineer who makes a car, he knows what is the capability of the car. We cannot use that car as an aeroplane.
Exactly.
He knows what are the specs of the car. We cannot use that car as a racing car. So the creator, if we really believe, if we have the real faith on the creator, the ones who have not created us, but billions of people before us and the millions coming, or billions are going to come after us, does he not know the problems within us? Then why he has allowed us? So with this firm faith, then who are we to challenge that clear-cut teaching which is available in the Holy Quran and explicitly mentioned in the Holy Quran?
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. For a Muslim to have this question is I mean, if I can use the word ludicrous, right? Because you cannot treat Islam as a buffet or as a cafeteria religion, right? I'll pick one that I like and I'll just ignore or completely disagree with the other because of external influences, right? The question becomes a lot trickier to answer when a person comes around and says, I don't believe in the Holy Quran, I don't believe in the Holy Prophet, right? So that's where you can now begin to quote science, and you can begin to quote other things, right? And I mean, very simply, like I said, I mean, you look at the entire Muslim population, right? Why aren't there higher deformities there than there are in other Western societies, right? If you look at Canada as a country, there are diseases in the Canadian population that are of much higher ratio in Canada because of our geographic location than they would be in any other country.
And
because of the atmosphere, because of the environment.
And not only that, I was talking to Anik Chatta Sahib, who was the part of the first program of the series. He has the background, he's learning in this background in the university. He mentioned that one of the specific community, they started getting married in 60s, like uncle to a niece or a nephew to the aunt. And then there were huge problems which happened in the next generation and within them. And they stopped it right away. So Allah Ta'ala has given us a middle path. That's why He stopped us to marrying from those relationships. And then they have experienced it and they stopped it suddenly. And because they wanted to marry within the same faith, they don't want to marry outside, and which is we promote also. But at the same time, they were not finding the suitable matches. So they opened up the floodgates of this dangerous path in which they started marrying with the nephew to a uncle, so that kind of relationships, and then they've experienced it firsthand. So here you go. There is a problem. When the problem comes, everybody knows about it. Instead of mixing up the two things together.
Again, it's not just isolated to the Holy Quran, and you can move into the Holy Bible or even the Torah. It's mentioned there what's permissible and what's not permissible, and nowhere does it mention that you cannot marry a cousin. So it's beyond just. And we live in a Western society. This is a Christian society based. So in their own Bible it says that what's permitted and what's not.
Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, I think their laws are all found in the Book of Deuteronomy.
That's right.
And nowhere does it say in the Book of Deuteronomy that the cousin marriages are not allowed. There is no verse of the Bible that condemns cousin marriage.
But and one more thing. So, Bisam, how you coped with your wife and you both in the Western society, the pressure, and there were not feelings or thinkings because you're living in the society where the people put you on the spot and the pressurized you.
Well, okay,
peer pressure.
So part of the thing is that I wasn't really walking around with a banner in my hand that I'm marrying my cousin, right? So, I mean, there was no pressure in that sense, right? I mean, you can get into the discussions when the discussion warrants itself, right? So I mean, like I said, I wasn't going out advertising, right? But the more important thing I think is the point that you raised about knowing the person, right? And I think for myself, that was a key factor, right? It was just difficult for me to imagine marrying a person, and not having any
knowledge or information,
any knowledge, anything like that, right? So because in my wife's case, I mean, we knew the family, right? I mean, we're relatives. We had met before at a few family functions before as well. So we already knew each other. So the start of a new life, that transition was a lot easier. Now, as far as your question about letting folks know, I'll tell you, 95% of the problems are in our minds. So I got married in 2000. It's 2014 now. Not a single person, and without exaggeration, not a single person has ever to this date asked me, "Is your wife your cousin?" Like, think about it. You're sitting at work, right? What do you think is going to happen? Why would something like this come up, right?
And at the same time, if something comes up, we should be confident enough to defend ourselves and defend the religion, and because we are confident, and that's another thing, right?
And I know of the non-cousins and non-relatives and different family tree at my work who are married, and there are severe medical deficiencies.
Something that he mentioned is very interesting, and it's going to come up in the clip that we're going to show later on. you know, when people in Islam get married to their cousins, there's this natural affinity that they have for a long time.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. The other kind of attraction. It's a natural kind
affinity, right.
of, you know the other person. It's part of the same family, and you have the knowledge of the background of that person. And you know.
Yes, please.
There's so many advantages and benefits, of course, in having cousin marriages, but that doesn't mean that's for everyone. It's case by case, right? That's a given. But one of the advantages or the benefits that I saw before getting married was I had a pool of reliable sources, like mamu, mamanis, and cousins. In your case, you knew her. I didn't know her at all, and so I had this pool of sources and resources that I asked, and from that I deciphered whether she is something that I got from there. And one of the post advantages or benefits that I've seen was the relationship that I have seen my wife and my mother develop.
Right.
And
Right.
it's a
That's
product.
another
It's
very
a
interesting
product
aspect.
of family. Happy mom is a very happy
And
husband.
happy mother-in-law, right? For sure. You know?
And so in
That's such a complicated situation.
in reality at times, and I'm sure my wife and my mom are nodding their head right now, at times I feel like I'm the son-in-law, and that's how close they've become, and so that's a blessing.
Right. Interesting. The second aspect, another scenario in which we know the person, and there's a huge possibility also, which I do brought up in the different programs, is the Ahmadi boys and girls going to the same colleges, schools, universities. They brought up together, and they know each other because they have been brought up together. So that's another possibility. What do you think about that? I mean,
are related Ahmadi boys and girls? Are you referring to that?
no, not the relatives, but they go into the same school.
They just
Oh,
grew
they
up
just
together.
grew up together,
Yeah,
right?
right?
We talked about it, I think,
Right.
in one of our shows
Right.
here as well. That why not? I mean, what's the issue with that? I mean, if they are growing up in the same schools, some children go to the same school.
The
So
university
again,
also.
that the same thing that I just mentioned is a natural affinity. It's not the other kind of attraction. It's not the sexual attraction. It's the natural affinity that is there, and just as it works in cousin marriages, it can work here.
So the point, the cousin marriages is for the youngsters, but this aspect is for the parents.
But the other thing,
Right.
but you see, the fine line here, you are growing up in a society where an aspect of the society, they don't consider it to be a taboo. And let me explain.
Right.
Promiscuity isn't considered bad,
Yeah.
right? So now when you're growing in that environment together, girls and boys, that tend to naturally lead to that step because that's the environment that you're in, and you always have to fight that, right? So yes, the initial affinity is there, but that affinity, because of the surroundings you have, very quickly develops into something a lot more.
So that's
Right.
where we need to keep, and that's why I in the programs which I mentioned,
That's why
it
the-
doesn't not only that, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we are opening the floodgates of the dating here. It's
Right.
a very respectful. Islam is a very respectful religion. It kept intact the respect of the persons. So if you find suitable someone for you, tell your parents, and parents must listen to it.
Yes.
What Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa, what Hazrat Khadija radhiyallahu ta'ala anha have done, she sent the message to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I mentioned
In
about
such a decent manner
in such
too,
a
right?
decent manner,
Exactly.
right?
You know.
So
See,
that
I
our
think
parents
part of the
need to
issue
listen.
part of the issue is also that we tend to confuse culture with religion as well.
Here you go.
Right? That's your biggest issue, right?
Right,
So I mean, a girl and a boy, fine, they've grown up together. They haven't done anything that is considered to be bad, right? But if the boy takes the proposal to the girl's family, and
that's
right?
what I'm going
and
to,
the Chaudhry in the background is laughing.
Girls' perspective, what do you think about this issue which we have just brought up?
In terms of family harmony,
Or the other avenue in which there is a possibility when the boys and the girls are being brought up together in going to the same school, colleges, and universities. What are the challenges? Why our parents they don't recommend that, or they don't listen to the children in that perspective, that if they want to marry to a person who grow up in front of that person, what's the challenges? Why it happens?
I think I just would echo the comment that was made that there is a difference between culture and faith. And I think sometimes our cultural perspectives that our parents and our parents' generation sort of hangs on to makes it difficult for them to accept these things?
Yeah, right. All right. Yeah, that's where we are fighting a war between the Eastern and the Western values, and Islam brings us in somewhere in between, because Eastern values are with the parents, and our youth think that's a religion, I mean that's make it so complicated, because they think that's a religion. That's not the religion. That's the Eastern value, Eastern culture, and the Western culture is by our youngsters. So then it becomes like such a complicated situation sometimes, and religion is not the part of any of those things. So with this discussion,
I just want to bring up an issue
Right.
that for cousin marriages, because that is the heated issue. It's some have said that it's not that they are against cousin marriages, but sometimes it's not the concept of the cousin marriage. They're specifically against that specific cousin, that Aisha or that Sufyan. So rather than embarrassing that family or making a deal about it, they just say, no, I'm against cousin marriages.
use it as an excuse.
And they use it as an excuse.
I think this is where you can quote Bush: "If you're not with us, you're against us."
So that comes. That comes up.
Actually, I wanted to share a story. It's a real story that, as you have talked about, for the timely marriage especially, and it's a combination of all the culture values and the timely marriage thing. I know a family in which a boy was going to go for a university education outside of the town, outside of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother proposed someone for him, and he said, fine, I mean, get me engaged over there. But the father of the boy said, no, they're not from the same caste.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have you get engaged over there. So fine. He went without engagement to the university. There, he found a local white girl, came to the same university which used to go to the same school in which he used to go from the childhood. They developed the understanding. They end up getting married. And that girl have not even accepted Ahmadiyat. So Ahmadiyat is gone, religion is gone, Islam is gone, caste is gone, everything is gone.
Everything is gone. Yeah.
And the family harmony is gone, because he was the only child or a boy of the family, and then all those things shattered. So this is what we need to understand, that what we are doing to ourselves. So with this, I think, so Sufyan Sahib, you can take us further for the break thing.
Yep. So at this time, we'll take a short break and watch a clip, and we'll be back right away.
My question is
You know the meaning of Sharif?
No, sir.
Not yet? Oh.
No.
Come on, I'll turn to that later when I talk to your husband. Huh?
Okay. Well, my question is about cousins' marriage. Yeah. Well, there are people who are against cousin marriage.
Okay.
But even Muslims and doctors.
Against.
Well, I don't know. I just want you to comment on that.
No. Comment you may freely, but if you don't know, then it's a different question altogether. The fact is that we in India and Pakistan and all in the whole of Arab world and Indonesia and Malaysia, etc., we have been having free marriages and marriages which are promoted by the society within the families, cousins, etc., etc., and we don't find fault at all, any problem with that. In fact, by doing that, we resolve many problems. In Islam, there is segregation of sexes so that the human society is kept under discipline. And no free license is given to any man to, look at women of which he has no license from God, So this promiscuous society is strongly suppressed and condemned by Islam, because otherwise it leads to all the problems like you are suffering nowadays from AIDS and other punishments from Allah and the broken homes and all that. I don't want to develop it further, but you should understand immediately that this free mixing is forbidden in Islam, and the reason why it is forbidden is apparent now. Now, in such a society, it is difficult to find matching people outside the family in areas where you do not know. And if you do not have any datings, if you have no occasion to meet and judge each other, how would you be able to find the right match? And even if you're permitted to date, you will not find the right match. You're likely to be led into the wrong match, like it happens here. So anyway, that is not a solution, but a difficulty, of course, for Muslim parents to find suitable matches for their daughters at least. Now this is answered to a large degree when families grow to a larger family group, like Kahlons are in Sierra Leone. And they intermix with each other, and they know each other. When there is no outside, pursuit of cheap pleasure, then one always turns back to the family for peace. If the pull from the outside is greater, then the families are broken. But in Islam, it is the whole Islamic teaching, social concept, which helps this and which interrelates one issue with the other. So in Islamic system of society, families are not only protected, but they keep on enlarging. And social gatherings are within the family circles and not outside. So as a result, right from the childhood, the boys and the girls know each other even before they come to maturity. And there is a natural affinity, a law of natural affinity which works. And many a time you notice that the boys and girls who are that high only, they already are attracted towards the other member of the sex, and not on the basis of sexual differences, but just on the basis of natural affinity. And matchmakings are done much before the time of their maturity. This is misunderstood by the Western people, and they think that we marry people, girls and boys, much before they're coming to puberty. It's false. What we do is that we know that they naturally fall together, so let them secure each other. And the actual marriage takes place much later. So among the family units, the marriages have found to be extremely successful. And there is less percentage of broken homes and families in Islam where this system works than anywhere else in the world.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this clip. It is from 96. It was a question and answer session presided by Hazrat Khalifa Masih Rabi. In this clip, Hazur really provided a good example of some of the benefits of cousin marriages, especially with smaller populations. At this time, I'm just going to go to one of the comments that I received from Twitter, and it's from Sadia Sami 1. And she says, if cousin marriages were harmful to humans, it would have been a sin stated clearly in the Quran, just like alcohol is. So she says that.
So she echoed the same thing.
Pretty much.
So you wanted to take it further from this?
There's another clip by Hazrat Khalifa Masih Rabi, Rahimahullah Ta'ala. And I think he mentioned in that it was the same question about cousin marriages and some things about genetics as well. And Hazur is like that, as far as the genetics I have studied, there is not much of a difference. Like it was mentioned, the 1% is not that much of a difference. It doesn't even, it's not even recommended. Right?
If it happens when you have 3 or 4 generations have the marriages.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the...
But Hazur mentioned something about that too, that in Pakistan there are some families like the Sayyids, and it never has resulted in any deformities.
And I mean, if you look at the entire Muslim population, right? I'm sure there are families.
If there is a case, if you come to know across something, then Hazur has also said you can have the exams or tests.
Exactly.
But that is a very rare. We cannot use that as a blanket statement, and that's the same thing with the other marriages.
And family members. I mean, one could have a minor, I don't know the medical terms, but you could be the carrier, and if the person also, your partner has it, then the child becomes infected with the.
Even Hazur was giving the example. I think you have heard it too, that of Arabs. They were taught, or it was part of their traditions, that they would get horses, inbreeding of horses, and that would result in healthier horses.
Best race
best
of
type
the horses
of
is of that.
And, so we have these examples as well. I mean, and it's just sort of a challenge to these, and these studies need to be checked.
And can I add something? This is very interesting. While preparing for this program, I came on, Dr. Sahaba will speak on this, I hope. It's a phenomenon called purging.
Right.
And it's something new to me, and it's basically where cousin marriages or some related couples who marry biological relatives. And what happens is there's disease genes that are identified and actually get exposed and then are removed from the gene pool. So, and that's something that was used in prior civilization when they were in smaller populations, and diseases would be removed from that gene pool. So this phenomenon is called purging.
Purging.
The
concept. Do you know about this process?
Yes, absolutely. It is very true. And as Hazur also mentioned, that the rate of birth defects or genetic mutations that show up actually show up after multiple generations. And in the same way, there could be some genes that could be purged after generations of people getting married who are close to one another in the same gene pool. So this type of situation arises after many generations have gone through, and there are also many genetic tests if one has concerns, etc. So, the bottom line is that this is a very small aspect of this entire concept, this entire issue. I think that more than medical science or genetics, the concern is just that it is socially, in this culture, in today's age, it is unacceptable to most people, or they feel that it is something undesirable, and that's the mindset that needs to be changed.
And by the way, Einstein got married to the cousin also.
So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, look what he did. He invented the atom bomb, right?
So Sabisa, are you going to invent something to
that's
the similar
perhaps
scale?
a case against marrying cousins.
I love when you
in a way it is.
when you mention this cousin marriages, when you mention this about cousin marriages, even in my family, there's people, and it's so funny when you see their face, and I said, "Amma, you want me to marry my cousin?" And it's just the culture that we brought up.
And you know what? The funny thing is that this isn't something that you see develops in their mindset at a later age.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that happens right from the early age.
From the get-go.
From the get-go.
Right.
So by the time, for example, right? You've done sermons when Halloween's coming, right? You go through and you explore. Everybody's going out trick-or-treating, but they have no idea why it got to that point. Right. What initiated the act, right? And it's the same thing here, right? It's just a concept that's just feeding itself.
Some of the parents have bought into this as well.
Of course.
So that's make it more worst. So with this, the next, this is where you have the possibilities. We have talked about two possibilities: cousin marriages and the people with whom you are getting brought up
Can
together.
I just add something? Just got a commentary.
Please.
It's in Canada, at least in Western society, their cousins interact very closely. Versus Pakistan, where my wife is from, where that's not the case. So they interact very closely, and what happens is that there's one of the comments is that they adopt a brother-sister relationship, and when that time comes, marriage proposal comes
in the West.
I'm sorry.
In the West, they adopt that.
Yeah, because because they're interacting closely, they're going together out, right, and so they get this brother-sister relationship. So when the time comes for marriage, they just refuse it for that reason.
I think, honestly, that's just reaching for an excuse.
Typical thing which is mentioned in the question, this session also, which the clip which has been shown. That's the main reason, because we don't allow in the religion, we don't want our families, our boys and the girls to go out and in the relationships. That's an outlet which is available in the family we have talked about, and to get married.
And I think I wouldn't agree with this statement. I think in Pakistan, families are even closer together compared to here. Right? The cold weather.
I think
Speaking of cold weather, that's why we have Tim Hortons, right?
And somebody tweeted that
Tim Hortons has sponsored it.
So
unofficial.
Unofficial.
You can charge them marketing.
So moving to the next portion is that selecting the partner we have talked about a little bit, that Eastern and Western values is making a very tough and complicated process. We need to make it very simple ahead, and then they had the successful marriages, keeping very simple the selection of the partner. But one of the thing which, a couple of things which have been brought up also as a challenge to the timely marriage, from the boy's side is the financial stability, and from the girl's side is education. That girl is getting educated, and then something else. So from the education perspective, Munazza Khan Sahib, especially from the girls' education perspective, what's your input? And I've seen one of your blog also. I know that you write blogs, so you have talked about this topic. So what is your perspective from this point of view?
A couple of things that, related to this topic come to my mind. So firstly, one of the benefits of education, we have to realize one of the biggest benefits that education will provide is that it opens up our spectrum of understanding. It broadens our horizons. And it allows us to recognize our Creator. It allows us to get close to Allah Ta'ala, which is, of course, the only avenue to making our spirituality stronger and to make our faith stronger. So, having said that, now, some women think that if they don't work after gaining this education, or if they don't continue to work after they get married, their education will go to waste. And I think we really have to think about what kind of return are we expecting from our education? What is our ultimate goal of attaining this education? So, as I said, education opens up vast horizons for us, right? It enables us to gain a wealth of knowledge. And I want girls to think that if you can pass along this knowledge to your children, to the next generation, if you can instill in them pious values and virtues and make them noble people, what could possibly be a better return for the investment that you have made in your education, right? And this is not to say that women are not allowed to work, and they should not work, and they're not allowed to go outside the home. Absolutely not. But I think the key is to understand what type of benefits education provides you other than pursuing a career, pursuing a job, and having an income. And also, Islamically, I think the career or the job aspect should be pursued when there's financial need at home. And education gives you that skills. It gives you that backup where if there is a need after you get married, you certainly have the skills and the knowledge to go out and be a productive member of society and also contribute to your family income. And if there is no need, if you are fine, then as I said before, you can work on instilling this knowledge and these values that you've learned into the next generation. And I think lastly, we also have to think that does our education, our being educated, has it led to us becoming wiser? Have we become more wise as a result of this education? So that is the main question too. Is it allowing us to make better decisions? Is it allowing us to become more well-rounded people so that we can contribute, in a beneficial, in a positive way to our families and to society?
MashaAllah, very well said, Munazza Khan Sahaba. And in a nutshell, that the main aim for a boy or a girl education is to understand the Creator. And of course, the major responsibility on the man or the boy is a qawam, he's the breadwinner. He has to think about the career also, but that must goes hand in hand with understanding the Creator. And for the girl, very interesting and very well said, is to prepare the next generation, which is the most important thing if we want to make this planet a beautiful place to live. So that's such a noble cause. So that's what we need to understand, and that's Sabisa was mentioning about something about the education in Germany and
yeah, but I think part of the challenge that needs to be addressed. I mean, it's all well and good to say that, right? Not that I disagree, right? Mm-hmm. But now you have to convince the person, right, who has spent 7 years of her life, right, gaining a highly specialized education, right, and she has her mind set on developing her career, right. So unless this is something that's instilled in her from an early age, right?
Right.
You don't all of a sudden become 20 years old and say, well, no, you have to support the family, because that doesn't work, right? The time has gone, right? Their primary argument will always be that by the time I get into the job market, I would have forgotten everything and I will no longer have any skills that are marketable, right? So that's one of the concerns that do come up, right? And looking at education these days, I mean, it's highly specialized, right? People spend a good part of their life trying to develop their skills. And if they want to get into a job market, I don't personally see anything wrong with that. But right, it just depends when you're going to go into the job market.
And
I mean,
also
if I'm
it depends
sick,
on the situation.
right? Like if I'm sick, I'm not going to go to work, right? It's just common sense. When you have a baby, right? Look at what these guys are doing. They are spending. If a woman is working, she is probably spending over 70% of her income in childcare.
Yes.
Right?
And also the car and extra car and all those things, revolving around that.
Like for example, for my wife, right? We agreed that she said, look, I want to work, right? So that's fine. When should you work? That was the question. So even without me saying anything, she herself said, look, when the kids are old enough, right, that they are going to school and that I do have that free time at home, I would then like to work.
So that's how it is.
That's Islamic perspective. You have to create that balance,
Exactly.
right? The primary goal of the husband is that he's a breadwinner and he's responsible for providing for his family. And the primary goal of our responsibility, sure, they grow up to be good moral people. If the mother or the wife has fulfilled or is fulfilling that part of her responsibility, then she is free to work.
Absolutely.
And that's, one very interesting perspective which you have brought up. I have one of the example in my family also. She's a doctor, and then she didn't work for the 15 years, and after 15 years she went back to the practice because of the children, and your wife is also a doctor. Right. So here it is, and not only that, but as Manaza Khan Sahib mentioned about the becoming a wiser, Hazuri Anwar in a letter to Muriamma mentioned a couple of years ago that our parents are focusing more on making good working women instead of the good mothers or good wives.
Sure.
So that's another, and one of the very alarming comment came from one of the mother in one of the questions session that they proposed a rishta to a girl who is getting educated, and what happened that the mother of the girl said, let her get educated. What is the guarantee of the rishta nowadays? Guarantee is the education because she can work then. So now you are instilling that doubtful environment in that, and what you have mentioned, instead of instilling the positive things in her mind, we are instilling, okay, now make things more complicated. We also came to know in the Rishta Nata process, Rishta Nata department, that some of the boy side, they're asking to the girl side that how much he's earning. So that's how the things, where our priorities are going.
Yeah,
are we becoming wiser with the time? Although we are having so many degrees and all those things, but what's going on here?
We're
Where we
becoming
want to
wiser, but just economically speaking, right? We want to get
and
more money.
materialistically speaking, not even
exactly.
economically, Yeah. So that's how it is. And I had the discussion. I had a discussion with one of my co-workers. She's a manager, and I asked her, like, what do you feel? Don't you feel in more tense environment because you have to fulfill an image of the society that you are a strong woman. You are working. She said, no matter what. No matter my husband helps me, I have to go and cook, I have to do the groceries, I have to take care of my child, and I have to work also. So they are trying to fulfill a certain image in the society which is for a strong woman, and they are going through such a tense period right now.
I'll give you one example. My 18-month-old, for the last 3 days, he's been very ill. Okay, he plays with me, plays with his brothers, plays with everyone when he's okay. For the last 4 days, he hasn't let go of his mother, right? Now, so if she is a full-time working woman, right, you can just imagine the impact that it will have on his health, right? Because he's not going to come to anyone else, and he refuses, right? He will only go to his mother. He will only get fed from his mother. Everything has to be done by mom, right? Will not let anybody else touch him.
And the psychological impact on the children also because of the daycares and all those things.
Exactly, right? So you take the mother now out of the equation because she's working 9 to 5, right? Your manager doesn't care your child is sick, right? So what happens to the child, right? Who is now the primary caregiver of the child, right? And it's not like anybody taught the child that you have to go stick with your mother and you can't, spend any time with anybody else. He's 18 months old, right? This is something that's natural. It's in nature, right? So you fight against nature, obviously you're going to have disastrous results.
Sufyan, I just wanted to add...
Sufyan Sahib, not Sufyan. We always mix them up. So,
so
you have two clones here.
He's with us. I want to just remind the viewers that if you want to tweet us, it's at @aperture_show. So please have them come. I'm getting them so many, so I should probably say ask a question here. This is from @Bilawal A.
Always ask the questions.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people attempting to find rishtas on social media. What's Jamaat's perspective on this? Maybe Murabi Sahib could.
Jamaat is the largest social media there is.
Yes, here you go.
I mean,
that's what we're doing today.
Social media. I mean, come on. We're not that much into it. We're not promoting it. The whole concept of social media has its own set of issues. We have on this as well.
But Sabisa has mentioned very interesting point.
What is social media?
The biggest social media.
What is social media? Just because you're now sitting on Twitter doesn't mean that. On the one hand, we're saying that we all live together, and that's why we think it's the girl thinks he's my brother and the guy thinks she's my sister. Right. Just because Twitter came out a year ago doesn't mean now social media.
Bilawal, yes. So we can do it. You can go on. You can.
As long as the rules are met, right? As long as the teachings of the religion are followed, no matter what technology you use, there's no
respect. It's the respect in the
media.
Okay, that's great.
But we have to talk about it. Don't steal our thunder, please.
I have another comment here. It's from Hania M. And she says, some kids don't even care about the superficial things. However, some parents instill these ideas in them, unfortunately.
Sure. So actually, you have to read the first one. What's your thoughts on parents being superficial and picking their child spouse based on physical appearance? And some kids don't even care about the superficial things. However, some parents instill these ideas in them, unfortunately.
Then I would
talk volume.
For those parents, I would say astaghfirullah.
You are one of them also.
if we would do that, then
right. And that's somebody asked Rabbi Mirza Sahib about this caste and all those things. He said, this is the next generation is going to go away. All of these things. This is just the last breaths which is taking right now. So, we'll inshallah we'll try to bring the change.
I remember one line from a parent. Somebody asked him what his caste was. And he turned around and said, my caste is Ashraful Makhluqat. So I thought that was a very good answer.
So, the last portion of this discussion, especially if it takes so much time, 7 years, so they get married and during the education. That's such a beautiful thing, because if the parents accommodate that boy and the girl, the husband and wife in their house with their needs being fulfilled, the newlywed develop such a respectful relationship with the parents because they have taken care of them. Exactly. And that's how it is. That's ideal society or ideal system, but we have this system. We have the examples in which some of the families have followed the instructions of Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Talab bin Aziz, during the Mulaqat. Chaudhry Abdullah Bari Sahib, Mubarak Bari Sahib, their sons, they got married during their education and they are, mashallah, doing wonderfully well. They have the kids also. So parents have supported them. And it's not such a big issue over here to support, for most of the cases, their kids. It's not a huge issue, like one more person coming in the house. So that's how it is. And with this...
we have about 4 minutes left. It's coming.
Yeah, the second perspective is the boys bring up, and the financial stability.
I can tell. Look, I can tell you.
You married 24 years. Yes.
I can tell you from my personal experience, right? And I was listening to your previous program as well, just getting ready for this program. And I think in your last program you had Shamoon Sahib, Sadr Sahib Saskatan, right? And he made a very good point. Look, if I was always looking at my financial stability, even after 4 kids, I wasn't ready, right?
Right.
So, and I think that's absolutely true, right? The wife look, you're doing something that Allah Ta'ala is instructing you to do, right? He is the provider, He will provide.
And there's a
I
guarantee
can
also.
tell you without a doubt that every time that when I got married, right, I got a raise out of the blue, had no expectations, got a different job. When I had my first kid, my financial situation improved to compensate for the child, right? Never mind child benefits from Government of Canada and all that stuff, right? These benefits were coming straight from the top, right? So those resources were being provided by Allah Ta'ala without anything or any effort being done by me. So
that's-
He's the provider.
right.
He is providing.
So the point is, yes.
Yeah, it's in the Holy Quran Allah says, "Kulu washrabu wala tusrifu," right? Eat and drink, but do not exceed the bounds. Innahu la yuhibbul musrifin. Allah does not love those who are, exceeding the bounds. So this financial stability concept comes from that, we are from this society of consumerism, and we have these big expectations and huge demands, and the way we consume models and all these things. That's where this whole concept comes from. But Allah says that, be modest in everything. And once you are modest, once you have lower your standards, then the question goes away, right?
Right. And that's where I want to, almost to the end of the show, I want to bring one of the very interesting quote by Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah Islam, response to contemporary issues.
It's a great book, by the way.
Yeah, and in this perspective, when the first question which we have, where the show was started, I want to know the person. How much I want to know. The people living here in this society, they know inside out of each other. They get married, they get divorced right away. And even they are not getting married now because of the fear of the divorce of all of those things, the financial burden and all those things. So the point is how much you want to know. And the second is how much you want to be financially stable. The gifts.
We're not alim al-ghaib, right?
Right.
Only Allah is the knower of the ghaib. How much do we want to know about the other person?
About the other person. So, this is the gift of the godless society. Because of the godless society, the result is that you become the custodian and guardian or the ensurer of everything you are doing. I want to be I want to know the person who is perfect for me. And I want to be perfectly financially stable before I get married. This is the result of because then you see.
That's impossible. I'm still learning
and
about her.
Then you see yourself as a god. You act like God.
Right.
You see yourself everywhere. And the tawakkulullah is gone out of this.
Yeah, the trust in Allah, that is gone. And you're so dependent on material means that you...
I'm the insurer. I make sure that everything
If
is
you know
fine,
everything
perfect for
about
me.
her, why are you getting married? Because there's no mystery left in it.
The mystery is continuing, actually. I'm still learning about her, and you are learning about this. So it's an ongoing and it's a long journey.
So, Munada Khan Sahib, before we go to Murabi Sahib, he has a very interesting quote by Hazrat Masih Maud Islam. What is your input as the last comment of this show, of this episode?
Right. My just final thoughts. I think that, as was said earlier, that if a girl is pursuing highly specialized education, is investing a lot of her time and effort and years into her education, it's not very easy for her to make that decision to abandon, let's say, her career or her future plans over marriage. But I think that the important thing is that girls should be raised with the proper understanding of what their goals in life should be and how education feeds into that goal. How will it help you achieve that goal? Not that education in itself becomes the goal.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so the higher purpose for why women were created and why Muslim women are made the guardians of the next generation in terms of spiritual and moral training, that perspective needs to be understood and can only be understood at an early age when girls are brought up with this understanding. So I think that if we work on that and start from that perspective, we'll be able to generate a new generation of women who will be very good mothers, inshallah ta'ala, and also very productive members of society at the same time, having been educated.
Jazakallah, Munada Khan Sahib. The last comment which we recommend for the timely marriage, the time frame at the most is that as soon as the boy finishes the university in the last year of his university, he should at least get engaged, and by the first year of his professional life, as you were and Shamoon Sahib, he should get married. And for the girl, by the second and third year at the most of her university, she should get engaged, and by the fourth year of the university at the most, she should get married. That's at the most thing, and it better sooner the better. So, Murabi Sahib, your hadith and the quote.
There is a hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ that if a boy is born in the house of a person, he should give him a good name, teach him manners, and arrange for his nikah when he grows up. And if he does not arrange his nikah when he grows up, and the boy commits some form of sin, then his sin shall be the responsibility of the father. Okay, this is one of these, and there's a quotation by the promised Messiah. Do we have time to read it in Urdu? Urdu as well? Or English? English? So, Hazrat Masih Maud, the promised Messiah, says that the Holy Quran has given us a teaching that we should get married with the intention to become righteous, and we should pray in order to seek righteous children, as he states in his holy book, marrying them properly and not committing fornication. This means that one should get married with the intention to enter the fort of taqwa and righteousness. It should not be that, like the animals, your only intention is to ejaculate. The word muhsineen means that the one who does not marry, he not only suffers from spiritual diseases, but also from physical ones. Hence, it is proven from the Holy Quran that there are three benefits of marriage. One is chastity and righteousness, the second is health, the third is children.
So what a beautiful way of summarizing all three episodes in one quote.
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. That's the strength of the sayings of the Muslim Islam. And this book, the name of the book is
I don't have the full reference.
Forgot the name. I have actually with me as well. It's a very strong book, Arya Dharam.
Arya Dharam, yes.
In this book, Hazur has very openly discussed about the religion of Arya. And you can see from the quote also, he used very open language.
Right.
And we should equip ourselves with these informations instead of feeling shy of our own religion. So with this, Sufyan sir, please help us. And there's no favorite tweets this week. We are already late, so please wait it for the next episode.
No, there was a favorite tweet. Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons.
That was favorite.
Favorite tweet. With your permission, I'll end the show now.
Yeah.
As this episode comes to an end, final stretch, I want to thank Sabi Nasser Saab for his time and his input, Murabi Saab as well, Shah Mansoor Saab and Dr. Mirza Khan. And of course, I want to thank someone special. I want to thank the cameraman. I want to thank the directors, the audio video crew as well. Their efforts have played a key role in distributing this program today. A very special thanks to you, the viewers. Without you, this program wouldn't cease to exist. Thank you for your tweets, your emails, and your feedback as well. I hope this program was very informative, entertaining, and as a result, it generates more discussion at home between parents, between siblings. And on the next episode, we'll go to part 4 of this ongoing series, and we'll be dealing with, correct me if I'm wrong, but the marriage process and the marriage ceremony. And until then, may Allah bless you and your family. Assalamu alaikum.